Welcome, everyone. Namaste, many blessings. Akasha here, Nan Akasha, and I'm here with my good friend, mentor, and expert astrologer, Donna Stellhorn. Hi, Donna.
Hello.
So today we're going to dive in. It's a special spiritual weather report. I get to bring in the experts for you. And what we're going to do is talk about a few interesting things. First, I want to remind you, subscribe below, make sure you hit notifications because we do go live a lot and you will find out that we're going live. Also, if you get on nanakasha.com, let's go back to that slide right there, you will get notifications. We send out emails and replay emails to make sure that you get access to all of this, and make sure you check out the playlists below. So we've got our Intuition Awakening Summer Camp coming up. So make sure you go there, and that link will be below as well. And we have our Avalon Ancient Mysteries Sacred Feminine Magic Retreat coming up in October. So reach out to me, take a look at that link below as well. And if you go to the shop, you'll see lots of free goodies and other things, including these new soul lineage sessions, which are really wow. So now we'll just go here quickly and make sure you check out donnastellhorn.com or her YouTube channel. So youtube.com/C/Donna Stellhorn. So in the old days, they were very, very simple, weren't they? And now they've gotten so many people on there. So you could check out that. I highly recommend that you get a session with her for your birthday, for whatever's happening in big in your life. And so let's dive in. So we're going to talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde, which is always the big thing, and retrogrades in general, because it's a common language. I think it was about 25 years ago that a very, very influential spiritual friend of mine introduced me to a lot of these things, and we would discuss Mercury retrograde. I don't know, because there was no YouTube and none of this other stuff back then, right? If anyone else was having that conversation, but I feel like we came up with the idea of the review and align and renew and whatever with the retrograde, rather than being in fear of it. So in general, there's a lot of information about retrogrades, but tell us all about this one coming up in August.
Well, the retrogrades do happen 3 or 4 times a year for Mercury. And so, like sometimes we can feel a little weary about it, but there is a spiritual reason for it. And that is that it's necessary for us to come to a point where we need to go back and pick up some of the stuff that we have left behind. So kind of picture yourself, you're driving through town and there is all these, like, oh yeah, I was going to stop in at that shop and I was going to go talk to this friend and all that, but we're busy. And so we keep going. Then the retrograde happens, and that's the point where we're turning the car around, driving back to pick up those different tasks or things that we didn't do. And then when it goes direct, we turn the car again around, and now we're going to go for the third time through that same territory. So what all that means is that as we move forward, when the retrograde hits, we have to say, what have I left behind? What have I skipped? What have I missed? And instead of going, oh, retrograde, so as we always do.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this,
there's a tendency for people to get frustrated, right?
of
Because we're
course.
always go, go, go. Let's move forward. Let's make this happen. Why is this slowed down? Why can't it, the whole divine timing thing and everything. And so, yeah, keep talking, but let us know also, like, how can people get out of that self-judgment type of thing about why didn't I know, or why didn't I do it sooner? Because it's just a waste of time.
It is, things happen. This is why it's here for us, so that we can go back. And maybe it's a reminder that we don't need to schedule ourselves to the last minute, but, and it's so interesting how when we sometimes unplug or take some of the distractions out, we suddenly have a lot of time. I remember when I gave up television, suddenly I had so much time. And that doesn't mean that you have to give up some favorite thing, but maybe just the mindless scrolling part.
Yeah.
You know, if we, you know, one of my nemesis on social media is the autoplay. Like I'm always looking, how do I turn off autoplay?
Or the
Mm.
volume, I click on
Yeah.
something, I don't want to hear it, but I can't find how to stop the volume. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So the retrograde might be that point where we say, this has been bugging me for a long time. Let me go in and actually work on it. And that's an important thing. So, but yes, I know that the retrograde can feel like it's super inconvenient. And this particular one more so because it's going to be in Virgo. And so Mercury rules two signs. It rules Gemini and it rules Virgo. And Virgo is all of the things that we do on a daily basis, the little things, the processes, the habits, the systems that we use to get things done. And when Mercury goes retrograde, those things break down.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
so it is, yeah, you're turning the car around, but you also have a flat tire and you've got that check oil light going on. And the phone is ringing and you think you should be moving forward when you have to go backwards. And so this is looking at your daily routines is what this retrograde is going to be about.
And what are the dates for that?
So it's going to be August 4 to August 28
So
is
most of the month.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Now, this also though brings this extraordinary opportunity. So because one of the things that Mercury retrograde does is every time it goes retrograde, we go back to do something that we've missed. And so if you start some things during the retrograde, then every time it goes retrograde, you will go back to that thing. So let's say you've always wanted to learn a language. And so you spend a few weeks that Mercury is retrograde really digging into your Spanish homework or learning Mandarin or something like that. And then, it keeps going, but like you get busy and it falls off after Mercury goes direct. Well, the next time it goes retrograde, which will be November, late November, early December, you suddenly really, really want to study Spanish again. You're pulling out your Mandarin homework. It's amazing. And so you can do this on, like eating, like healthy eating, exercise plans, reaching out to friends, anything you want to be reminded to do again.
So is it good to start something during retrograde or not?
It is good if you want to repeat it.
Okay.
So, but if there are things that you're doing that you could schedule outside of the retrograde that you don't want to repeat, so such as car maintenance, root canal, a divorce, like try to get those outside of the retrograde so you don't repeat them in the future.
Yeah, I remember when I learned that a couple of years ago from you, and it was like, don't start anything in the retrograde that you don't want to repeat. And so that's a really good thing to think about because you've got a little bit of time here before it starts, and you can look over your schedule and you can look over what you have planned and you could move it around a little bit because you can pretend it doesn't matter or you want to push it forward because everybody wants you to push it forward. However, these energies aren't going to care about who else wants you to do what when. They're going to do, operate this way anyway. So you can use this to help you.
Yes. You can also do things that are reoccurring naturally. So it's not maybe so good to sign a first lease on Mercury retrograde, but if you're expecting to be in a place for several years, you can re-sign on the retrograde. Or like if it's an employment contract and you have to renew every 6 months, try and hit the retrograde so that then everyone feels compelled to have you sign that contract again.
I love it. So if you have a client you want to be a repeat client, sign them up during retrograde.
Correct. And because the retrograde tends to double things, that new client that comes in during the retrograde will oftentimes bring somebody else. They,
Nice.
they will, like two people will show up where you were expecting one.
Mm.
So, doing marketing during the retrograde is actually a really good thing. You just have to really check your text, advertising copy for mistakes, because that
Mhm.
can also have, like make sure you don't have any broken links and so forth.
Yeah,
So,
with Mercury being communication, right, or the messenger
yes.
of the gods, then you do want to be clear, especially when you're in retrograde,
Mhm.
about your communication and double checking because it's retrograde
Right. But
on
you
those
might say
things.
to yourself, you know what, I'm going to do a marketing push every retrograde. And
Mm.
so, and then everything's all set up already, and you are ready to go, and you push the button, and now the marketing's working. And every time you get someone, they're either going to come back for future sessions or more people come.
I love that. That's a really cool secret right there. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so think about different areas of your life. If you don't have your own business, like we're talking about, see where else you can apply that, right?
Yeah, like
Into,
seeing friends, it's sometimes we push the friends aside because we get so busy, but make a point of seeing them during the retrograde. Or if you are taking a quick little trip, consider doing it on the retrograde. Because
Mhm.
actually travel on the retrograde is okay. You're just likely to return to that spot.
Mhm.
And then just also realize that your luggage might go to Baltimore.
Yeah, and don't get upset about it.
Right, right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
make sure, like the obvious things that we do when we travel, putting the name and address or whatever contact info inside the suitcase and on the outside, etc. All of these sort of things you just have to pay more attention to during the retrograde.
Double the idea of double up on your tags and your backup communication and
Mhm.
all of that too.
Yes.
So how does this relate? How does Leo come into this? Because you mentioned Virgo. However, we're going to be in Leo.
We are going to be in Leo, and Leo is about self-expression and, of course, children, but also creativity and risk-taking. So when we add in, so the interesting thing, when we are in the sign of Leo, the sun is in Leo, and so it pretty much is self-contained. It says,
Yeah.
like, I'm the king, and this is my kingdom, and that's what's most important. But when Mercury is in Virgo, it is also self contained because Mercury rules
That's right.
Virgo. So, in those instances where, say, Mercury was in Leo, Leo is ruled by the sun, then the king owns everything, owns the Mercury, etc. But this retrograde will be this separate entity that is trying to get your attention, where you want to be having fun, where you want to do your creativity, where you want to hang out with your kids, where you are wanting to do the things that you've been planning to do that make life so exciting. And then Mercury retrograde in Virgo is going to come in and say, oh, yeah, but you forgot to send your quarterly tax payment. You
Hmm.
know, it's going to try to put in the, oh, but you need to stop and make a healthy breakfast sort of energy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that are good to do during the Leo? And it's interesting. I can see this visual of this little pod sort of coming into the sun and going through the sun, that self-contained Mercury Virgo pod.
Right. Right. Or kind of think of it as, you are having the best time possible. And then somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, your car is being towed. It's that sort of energy. So it's necessary to pay attention to both of these energies, to not just let go and say, oh, well, heck with the car, I'll get another one.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Now, Mercury in Virgo also is about health and well-being. And so things that, like, again, we're in this Leo energy of let's be carefree, let's have fun. And Leo feels pretty fearless, but the Virgo energy may have aches and pains, little difficulties that reoccur for some unexplained reason. And the reason is, of course, the retrograde. So, because oftentimes when we have these little medical things, these little health things, it can be a message from the universe. And I'm sure you're familiar with the Louise Hay Heal Your Body, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I have it now
So,
next to my chair over downstairs.
right. So, for those who don't know, it's the emotional causes or spiritual causes for physical illnesses. And it is the idea that it's not necessarily that we're causing the illness, although that can happen at times, but it is that it has a message for us and we have other ways to work on it besides just conventional medicine. We can attack it from multiple places. So, for example, if you say, like, oh, my knee has been so much better, Mercury retrograde in Virgo happens, and suddenly your knee is bugging you again, you might look at where you're being inflexible, where you are not bending, not adjusting.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
review idea, review it,
Yes, exactly. And it's popping up to remind you, oh, you're getting inflexible again. Time to work on that.
Mm. So anything else about this particular Mercury retrograde?
So with this retrograde, of course, there's also the idea of work. And Mercury in Virgo just needs to get stuff done. And so this is about what kind of systems that you use. How do you keep things in mind? Usually during just any time Mercury is in Virgo, I'm going to relook at my systems. I use a calendar system and use some. I have a board of post-it notes for the bigger goals and things like that. But it's interesting because we're not quite in this energy yet, but we are feeling it already. And I was just listening to someone who they use a system where they do kind of a page for second brain, which is it's just a page that sits like an open document on my computer, and every time something pops into your mind, you put it in there, and then later you can organize those notes. And so you don't have to keep it in your head of, like, oh, I have to send the electric bill, like to work where I have to send the electric bill, and hi, I have to send the electric bill. Like, stop doing that part and get this into some sort of system. So when we're talking about work, how can we use these systems for work? The other side of this is your job itself. And that is, if you work for somebody else, or even if you work for yourself, there may be something you need to change or look at in your job. So let's say you have a job, you work for somebody else, and there were some rumors about layoffs. Now those could happen. There may be rumors about a new boss or new software you have to, now it's going to happen.
Interesting. Okay.
And, because companies don't hire astrologers to help them out, which they really should, they tend to start these big things on the retrograde because they tried before and now they feel really compelled to do it. So now you have this whole new software system to learn or new manager to meet during the retrograde, and it just seems to crumble around you.
Wow, interesting. I know it would be so much better. I met a lady who did Chinese astrology. I don't know if there was a specific aspect of it, but she actually was hired by very big corporations to come in and watch groups of people working and do the charts of those people and move them around where they were sitting, who they were working with, whether they were in the right job based on basically their Chinese astrology. And she was quite in demand. I found it very fascinating.
Yes, if you scratch the surface, you find that most astrologers do work for some very high-end people, but it's very confidential, of course, because they don't want to be seen as using that. But, when people are in power, they're going to use whatever edge they can get. And
Yeah.
astrology gives a very big edge. We see this a very common too in Indian businesses in India. So, because, there is such an understanding that the energies make such a difference.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice that they have a culture like that. And like you said, like even with intuition, I remember when I first started to research, governments, military, high level executives, Wall Street, stock trading, they all get very high level training on their intuition and think it's their edge, but they don't tell anybody.
Yes. So then let's talk about the finances and Mercury retrograde. So because the retrograde has us relook at something usually about a week before the retrograde, when people are starting to really sense that the retrograde's coming, the stock market goes to where people think it should be.
Mm.
So if you're looking at the market now, and I didn't look this morning, but yesterday it had popped above 40K and for the first time. And so if people feel that is too high, the market will drop. If people feel the market is undervalued, it will go up. So know that there's going to be probably some gyrations. We also get this around eclipses.
Mhm.
So, which we'll have one in September, we'll have an eclipse in October. So, and then come late November, we get Mercury retrograde again. So, like it's busy times.
Oh my gosh. So anything else that we want to pay attention to with the money aspect of our lives in retrograde? I mean, if you
Yeah.
want something to repeat
Yeah. Well, I really think
or
with the
double.
money and with all of the things is when the retrograde comes and takes us back to doing something well. Like, oh, I really should be saving money, or, I should watch my spending, or, hey, there's an opportunity to make more money. I need to go do that. Skip the berating yourself part of this. Instead of saying, oh, I drove right by that place and now I have to go back and that's awful, say, no, now is the time to go back and look at this.
Yeah.
Now is the time to go back and say, oh, am I eating my vegetables? Am I exercising? Now is the time to say, am I sticking to my budget? Especially because this is in Virgo.
Yes, that very practical. My mother's Virgo. So when you talk about Virgo, I have this very, very vivid, experience of knowing her, watching her, seeing her, and,
Mhm.
stay inside the lines and,
I think it's a wonderful sign. It gets a lot of flack. I think it's a wonderful sign because it is the mechanism that causes everything to work. So, and when we think of the three earth signs, Taurus is kind of like the earth, it just sits there. It's like a mountain that doesn't move. So, and Capricorn's kind of like a landslide, like all the rocks are tumbling down towards you. Or in the positive sense, it is every brick goes onto the building and then the building is built. And so there's just this, like cranes moving and people, climbing over the building and building this thing. But Virgo's like sand. And it's just constantly shifting and moving so that every single detail, every little open crevice is filled. And I'm sure you've seen that idea of they take the jar and they put the big rocks in, and then they could say, okay, well, nothing, no more rocks fit, but then they can pour like a bucket of sand in it
yeah,
because the sand will still fit.
yeah.
So it's this idea is what can we fit in here? It's the little things.
Yeah, so it's also to fill it out, to fill it up around the bigger things, but it also makes me think of the idea of it's more fluid for Earth,
More fluid,
it
much.
has that ability. Plus, I live on sand. That's all it is. I building my pool and some other things, and my contractor kept saying, "Remember, this is just sand, right? That's all that's down there is sand, and then water." Um,
Wow.
uh, yeah. They have to hit the water to put the house up. So, but the idea that you set like a path and then you pour the sand and it goes down and it fills in to
Mhm.
make that stone or whatever it is
Yeah.
more solid, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so during the retrograde, look at what you're doing that's filling in the cracks. Is it
Mm,
just scrolling, or is it doing something that's benefiting you? Or, you have 5 minutes, do a meditation instead of scrolling,
yeah.
you know, or, write something that's on your mind, or call a friend, text a friend, like those sort of things we can do. And we can go back now with the retrograde and shift those regular little tiny things, the mini habits.
Yeah. Is it a good time to go back to things that you didn't finish? Like, oh, I had this, and these big things come up last month, and there's all these, I didn't put the bills away, or I didn't, finish this article I'm writing or reading, or, those kind of things. Is it a good time for that?
I really think so, especially being that it's in Virgo. I
Mm,
think that it's really helpful to maybe make a quick list to say what needs to be cleaned up. And you may get to that thing and say, you know what, I don't need to finish reading this book.
yeah.
I got what I needed out of it, so I can take it off my list. So, but that's
Mm,
what the retrograde's for, is to just go back in and see, is a course adjustment needed? Does something need to be finished? And just to go back and reflect on how it's going so far. You know, one of the things the retrograde does give us is that time to reflect. Sometimes, and we all say, like, the it's everything's moving so fast. I mean, we're talking about August of 2024. Like,
I know.
it's so fast. So, and because of that, all of the things that we're trying to do, the big things that we want to do, kind of get left in the wayside because we don't do the small things that create that opportunity,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So the, I have people on my channel who write in and say, this was supposed to be such a good time for me, but nothing happened. And I said, well, you didn't plant any seeds to make something grow so that you would have that harvest.
Mm,
And that's because we got so busy. So here comes this retrograde to realign ourselves to, if you want to write a book, then during the retrograde, make a point of, 100 words a day. So yeah, if you want to paint pictures, if you want to write songs, if you want to, build your friendships, like, here's the opportunity to be conscious
mm.
about it.
Yeah, and then it's something that if you like that, oh, then I'll write again, or I'll see my friends again, like you said, or
Mhm.
the other things. So,
Yeah.
well, we have a couple minutes to finish up, and since we kind of touched on that, when is the new moon in August? It's got to be pretty close to when this starts, and then the full moon is later on the 19th. And the new moon's the time for planting those seeds you just talked about.
Correct. So the new moon is on August 4, and I'm thinking, because I just did this video is going to go out on my channel, I think on the 22nd. So right now it's the 18th. So just a few days. And so but this upcoming new moon is going to be a really interesting aspect of Venus in conjunct Neptune. And so the energy is really like, and it's Venus at 29 Leo. So it's like, I want to play. I want to treat. And but it's at 29, so it feels like this is my last time to have this. It,
Ah,
I don't know why we'd be at the last days of summer in early August, but it just feels like, oh, like I have to have some fun right now. And then
um,
in conjunct the Neptune, oh, don't really know what it is. And, everything seems to be just passing away. It just seems to be, like not, and we can't grab hold of it.
it's very
So,
etheric. Yeah. Very,
yeah.
very.
And, and so it's really to look at, though, what you're putting into your daily life when we hit that retrograde time of, okay, I want this in my daily life, not the scrolling perhaps, but instead I want to, read a page of this book every day because this book is important to me. And then in the course of a year, you'll finish that book,
Mm, mhm, yeah.
you know?
Uh,
So,
well, that's very significant because the new moon and the retrograde are almost
yeah,
on top of each other. So,
yeah.
and then, and then, so just give us a little thing about what Neptune means, the energies.
So Neptune in Pisces, and it's sitting at 29 degrees. It is retrograde, so it's going to go back to 28, but 29 is a critical degree. And so Neptune at 29 Pisces is really understanding what is out of your control.
Mm,
What do you just have to let go of? And we see this so much that we try to measure our lives over things that are out of our control. And that's not, it's not helpful. Like I can't say, like I want to do this video and get this many number of views. That's totally out of my control. But I
yeah.
could say I want to do this video better than I did the last video. That's in my control.
Mm, okay.
So
Yeah.
that's what the Neptune at 29 Pisces is teaching us is some things we just don't control. And then it goes for when we're watching the news and things like that, the majority of the stuff that we may feel upset about or outraged about is outside of our control. Now, if there's something you can do in your neighborhood about it, if there's something you can do in your family about it, if there's something you do within yourself about it, do that. But unless you're in Congress, which if you are, hi, I have some suggestions for you. Then let it go
Yeah.
because it's not on your soul's journey.
Yeah, that's a difficult one, I think, for many people. And then the waste of time doing the repetitive thoughts over these things that upset you or that you wish were different, but aren't, I mean, politics is not one of my wheelhouses in this life, ever has been or will be. Music either. There's just some things I can't, it's not really my aligned for me. So,
I
well,
I,
good.
I
Hmm?
think that one of the reasons that we are susceptible to this sense of recurring outrage is because we don't have something in our life that is exciting enough that makes us feel that alive. We need to cultivate that. And that's a
Yes.
good thing to do during Leo time is take a risk and put yourself outside of your comfort zone to give yourself something to talk about that's not outrage, but is excitement.
Yeah.
And that might
Yeah.
mean, putting your art out for display or putting yourself on camera or getting up on a stage or, you know, looking around for another job or considering moving to the place you want to live, like
Mm.
doing something bigger. So, and then the Mercury retrograde will help you deal with the details.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, great food for thought. My mind's already going, la, 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 la. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. So, all right, wonderful. Anything else you want to share before we close?
Well, I'm sure we'll be talking again for the upcoming eclipses, but eclipses, they bring change. But all of you listening, you are spiritual beings. You know that something's coming. Go work on that. And what will happen is you will ride the wave instead of getting hit by the wave.
Yeah, definitely. Too. Well, and maybe we can get you back in August sometime to talk about the full moon coming at the end of the month, because
That
uh,
one's a little intense,
it's
yes.
a little intense. And again, you can do things to ride the wave instead of getting
Well,
knocked over by
intense
it.
could mean that, you win the prize. You meet the person, you get the house. Like intense doesn't have to be negative.
That's very true. Early on, my first business was in fashion design in LA. I worked for another company, and then another person in the company and I decided to start a business. And we were talking to a friend of ours who'd been in business for a very long time, a nice, wise, sage elder. And he said, "Oh, you should do this and that." And my friend said, "No, no, 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 you don't understand. She's really good and I'm really good. Like we made a really good partnership." And he said, "And too much business is just as bad as not enough business if you grow too fast or everything." And of course, we always think, "Oh, just bring it on. I want it all. I want it all." And you just get a little bit of that growth, and then you're overwhelmed with how to handle the growth and how to keep up with the customer
Yep.
service or whatever it is. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
people
a
keep wanting to X out Saturn, but Saturn's helpful. Saturn,
yeah.
Saturn helps us consolidate. When there's so much growth, Saturn comes in and says, "All right, let's make this solid. Let's build a structure. Let's do something so that this is not a house of cards, that this is, a temple."
Yeah. Well, I've made friends with Saturn. I got a lot of Saturn. So instead of being frustrated, feeling like that little girl who's constantly told no, and really understanding, yeah, that benefit of that and all of these energies. And that's really what this is about. This is about giving you a heads up, giving you an idea without becoming Donna, without becoming an expert at this, unless you want to, and being understanding that you're not just running through your life and things are happening willy-nilly, that these
Right.
energies really do have an effect and you can
Yep.
understand them, you can plan
Yep.
ahead. Yeah.
Yep. And they have a beginning, they have an end. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
It
And
was my pleasure.
once again, check the links below to find Donna, or put in donnastellhorn.com or Donna Stellhorn slash something C/ Donna
Yeah,
Stellhorn for
just
YouTube,
search
or
search me on YouTube.
just
You'll
search
find
for
me.
YouTube. And it is very, very helpful. I always watch even though I know you, I always watch your videos as well for the
Thank you.
moons and everything. So because you're the practical astrologer, which I love, that you have the spiritual side, which I love, and then you have the practical side that I love as well too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Thank
okay,
you so much.
thank
Thank you. I
you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. And make sure you reach out if you need anything. Check out the links below, and I will see you soon. Ciao.